טוב, בעזרת השם. So now we start פסוק ה', פסוק ה'. השבעתי אתכם בנות ירושלים, daughters of Jerusalem, I swear, right? I vow. It's a sign of like we saw it already in the second perek. I adjure you, right? בנות ירושלים בצבאות. The tzvaot is the gazelles, right? או באילות השדה, or by the ayalot, the ends of the field. אם תעירו ואם תעוררו את האהבת שתחפץ, do not wake or arise the love until the time it is pleased, until it comes naturally. You remember that pasuk in the second perek? So in this context, Shlomo HaMelech basically saying that the nefesh, or the neshama tells the nefesh, tells the kochot HaNefesh, the instinct, right? That's Benot Yerushalayim, right? That's Benot Yerushalayim is the instinct. It tells the instinct, don't try to overcome the trouble and interfere in the interaction that I have and in the level that I have at this moment with so basically it's an internal battle Shlomo HaMelech has between what he's experiencing and what he's loving and what's happening to him on a prophetic level, and the recognition that there is an instinct, that there is a tendency that's rising and interfering, and that might stop this amazing experience that Shlomo HaMelech is having spiritually. So he's consolidating, or even he's gauging the interaction there is between his spiritual connection and his essence, and trying to contain the awakening, that's the word I want to use, contain the awakening of the instinct. So it's a recognition and self-awareness on one end of the experience, but also of the threat and the natural challenges of the instinct, right? It's not a utopic, foolish high and forgetting everything behind. No. It's a comparison that is happening at all time, yeah? And that's how we can monitor and control the instinct. That's Ishvati Etchem Benot Yerushalayim B'tzvaot HaSadeh B'ayalot HaSadeh. Yes, you go back, right? Like the Ayal and like the Tzevi, they go very fast, right? Looking back. The nature also. I know how fast impulsion and instinct can go, right? Like we mentioned many times. The instinct, the Yetzer Hara, right, is 13 years older than the intellect. So it is very easy for the instinct to go from 0 to 100 in a second, because that's what you've been identifying yourself with all your life. So here, Shlomo HaMelech not only keeps a relationship, a connection to the threat or the dark side. And they say the dark side is the instinct that can interfere in the relationship, but also recognizing that it has an edge, it has a power. And what's that power? Is that it can go from 0 to 100 extremely fast. Yeah. So when you're growing spiritually, when you're on a high, the Malbim, and in this case, the Gaon also come and teach us. Very simple. Don't fool yourself by the high, by the moment. For sure, you have to appreciate the moment. You have to grasp and hold on to the moment, but do not lose focus of what can interfere in that moment. In this case, the instinct, the kochot hanefesh, right? The midot, the dimayon, the imagination, and how powerful they are, and how quickly they can interfere. The assessment. Here, Shlomo HaMelech is telling us always assess, introspect, and be in tune with the reality of your essence, even though you are on a super high spiritually. Simple, straightforward pasuk. And now we're talking about what? We're talking, if we put things in perspective, we're talking about Shlomo HaMelech that was, pushed himself almost to death to find a place of connection that is so pure. Right?
Yes.
And he doesn't want to let go, but yet he's aware of the challenges that are in front of him, that might interfere in that level of connection. Mizot ola min hamidbar. Who? And there is like an internal question. There is a reflection that is happening. Pasuk Vav. Mizot ola min hamidbar. Who is that one? Who is that neshama, that lady, that essence, right? In case we're talking about the neshama. Ola min hamidbar, that can elevate itself, right? That rises from the desert, rises from a place of heaviness, from a place of stationary behavior, by a place where there's no life, there's no movement, right? The desert is stationary. Self-question. What is it? What is it? How was I able to allow the neshama rise to such a level, which is incredible, as we addressed in the last shiur, and yet from a place that is so dead, right? So once again, a self-awareness, a question, an understanding. How did I go from the desert to elevate myself to the highest level of prophecies?
Is it the actual makom, or is it the state of the neshama of where it is today?
The state. So, just 1 second. We'll make a 1 minute resume for Andy. So, we did Pasuk He. The Pasuk He we already studied it in Perek Bet. Ishba'ati etchem benot Yerushalayim. Basically, it's a vow Shlomo HaMelech makes to not allow the instinct, the emotions, the imagination interfere in that high, that spiritual high that he's in right now. And what we learned from that, and that comes from the Malbim and from the Gaon, very straightforward, and they say refer to the Pasuk in Perek Bet, Pasuk Zayin, which is the same Pasuk that we learned at length. He's basically saying, look, the Benot Yerushalayim, right, the desires, the instinct, the Yetzer Hara, is extremely fast, like the Tzvi, like the Ayal, like the Ram. They will go very, very, very fast, and they can set you back, right? They always look back. So I need to be aware of all those awakings, all that nefesh of mine that can come and interfere very quickly in my spiritual connection that I have. So we see from Shlomo that even when you're on a high, on a positive high, on a spiritual high, you can not lose focus of your essence. You cannot be in a utopic connection and think that everything is beautiful and pink. No. You need to recognize that there is still the Yetzer Hara, and the Yetzer Hara is powerful. You need to identify it, assess its strength in order to gauge and protect what you have. That's Pasuk. That's Pasuk A. Pasuk Vav, self-question. Mizot ola min hamidbar. Who is she that comes up from the desert? Who can rise? What made the neshama rise from the desert, from a place of emptiness, of death, of silence, of steadiness, and elevate itself to the super highs that Shlomo HaMelech is experiencing, right? The levels of prophecy that, like we said, came to him after he almost died, right? Like we said, he almost detached himself fully from his essence, completely. He almost died. And so, what happened here? Ketimrot Ashan. It says like a pillar of Ashan, of smoke. The Metzudat David says Ketimrot. Why Shlomo HaMelech uses the word Ketimrot? Ketimrot comes from the word Tamar, right? You can find in the word Ketimrot the word Tamar is the palm tree. The palm tree is very tall, goes very, very high, right? Tzaddik katamar ifrah. The tzaddik rises like the tamar, like the date tree. So he says, how is it that we see that smoke, like a tree, rising so high and so straight and so beautifully in the middle of the desert? And we'll dive into what that means. Mekuteret, and it has in it essence, smell, the ketoret, right? The ketoret are the smells, right? The incense, mor, from the myrrh, ulevona, from the frankincense, two different types of essence. Mikol avkat rochel, from all the different fragrances and powders of the merchant that sells, the perfume merchants. At the time, you had those perfume merchants that used to have all those spices and all those smells. But Shlomo HaMelech uses 4, according to the Gaon Mivilna, dives into 4 essences of Esh. And he says the following. He says, Ketimrot Ashan, Mizot Ola min hamidbar, Ketimrot Ashan, and he has point of references in Pesukim. Ketimrot Ashan means is referring to the smoke of the fire of the menorah. The menorah, and he's basically referring to the 4 types of smoke, of fires or smoke that came from fire in the Bet HaMikdash. The first one is the menorah, Ketimrot Ashan. Mekuteret mor, the smoke of the ketoret, right? The essence, the incense that we used to burn on the mizbeach. Levona, the frankincense, was also on the shulchan of the mizbeach, the shulchan where we had the lechem hapanim. It was also a smell that was burnt, okay, and gave smoke to give beautiful smell on the table. Mikol avkat rochel, he says this is the smoke of the mizbeach. So we have the smoke of the menorah, we have the smoke of the ketoret, we have the smoke of the mizbeach, of the shulchan, where we had the lechem hapanim, and we have the smoke of the mizbeach. He says those reflect 4 different types of avodat Hashem. The menorah is the wisdom. The ketoret is the appreciation, the taste, the smell, the taste how you connect emotionally and your senses to the Torah. The levona is what you take out of it, is the taste from the shulchan, is the benefits. The shulchan is the source of beracha that humanity is blessed with, is the benefits and the outcome that you learn, the lessons that you take from the Torah. And the Avkat Rochel is the Avkat Rochel, the Avkat Rochel is the Mizbeach, which basically represents the sacrifice, right? So you have the intellectual connection, fire. You have the emotional connection. You have what you learn, what you internalize, and you have what you sacrifice, right? And you can find...
What was the Hebrew word for the emotional connection? Number 2?
For the
emotional...
Ketoret. Mekuteret more.
Thanks.
So we find a paradox. 2 paradoxes. Menorah versus the Ketoret. Intellect versus the emotion. And then we have Levona and Avkat Rochel. We have what you internalize versus what you sacrifice. You sacrifice is what you let go. What you internalize is what you keep. Says the Gaon Mivilna, this is the identification of the growth that led Shlomo HaMelech to the greatness of that nevuah. Because what is Shlomo? What is Shlomo? Shlomo is Shlomo is making an introspection. Okay, he's making an evaluation. What is he saying? He's saying, Mizot olami damidbar. How did I get to what I got? How was I able to raise from the desert all the way to this level of connection? Ketimrot ashan, like a pillar, right, of smoke, like a tree of smoke. So this is the definition, right? This is the assessment of the situation. This is what's happening. How did mekuteret mulvona? This happens, you know why? Because it has the ketoret of the more, it has the levona, it has the avkat rochel. This is the assessment. The nevuah is because of that structure, because of an elevation intellectually, a connection that is intellectual, a connection that is emotional, a sacrifice and internalization of the knowledge and that comes with a sacrifice. So when you, obviously, this is the higher picture, but when you take any mitzvah, going back to that fundamental teaching, if you take any mitzvah, you work on any midah, anything you do, if you want to elevate yourself above all those challenges to a real point of connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, on a micro level, you need to be able to have an intellectual connection, an emotional connection to what you are learning. It cannot be just intellectual. It has to be emotional. You have to feel it. You have to sense it. You have to be able to internalize, right? And learn a practical lesson from it. And essentially have this sacrifice. Learn, like, what did you have to give up in order to connect and bring in and internalize what you have learned. If you don't have one of the 4, then your connection is not full speed. It's not clear. There's going to be interference. There's room for a disconnect. So that comes with tefillin, that comes with achilat matzah, that comes with leil seder, that comes with lulav, that comes with sisi, that comes with shalom bayit, that comes with learning Torah, that comes with mishnah. Yeah, obviously, the overall picture is this is the structure of the tamar. Ketimrot ha'ashan, tzaddik katamar ifrach. To become that tzaddik, if you want to rise against all odds, even in a situation that is like the desert, this is what it takes. This is what it takes. This is the Gaon Mivilna. The Malbim has another twist, very beautiful twist to it. He says, fire has many elements to it. It takes something that is solid and turns it into something that is a gas, energy. In that process, it will consume in order to create. Good? It will consume in order to create.
To create what? If it consumes?
If it's whether it's light, whether it's heat,
Okay.
whether it so it has to consume the oil, the gas, in order to create something else.
Energy.
The energy. And he says, in that consumption, or it will turn something that is like you say a wick, cotton into efer, into dust, right, into ashes. Or it also can release essences that are stuck inside a liquid, for example, and bring out its smell and free its smell, right? For example, when you light one of those nice candles, what's happening? It's releasing the smell, right? That is locked into that wax. It goes into the alchemy aspect of it. Very interesting. It goes into the really scientific aspect of it. We're not going to go into that so much. So he says, but the fire or the smoke, right, that's coming out. So you have the smoke that is essentially the burning, right? And in it, you're going to have the smell that is being released. And then you have the heat of the energy that's being created. So says the Malbim, in order to produce and in order to unlock, you need to go through a sacrifice. You need to be able to consume something. He says, Shlomo HaMelech, what he's saying, he says, you know why I rise so much? And you know why there is such a beautiful smell? Because I was able to burn down the physical aspect of me. I was able to burn down the emotional aspect of me, which is the smell. And by sacrificing my physical actions, which is turning into dust, right? That's the physical that turned into dust. By sacrificing my emotions, which is the smell, which is the taste of things, I was able to release such a beautiful smell. The outcome is phenomenal. And this is how I was able to get to my level of nevuah. So the Malbim takes a different angle. He says that Shlomo HaMelech, and he's following what he said earlier, that he almost died, right? He had to detach himself fully from himself to the highest level possible. He said he had to be able to consume and really tear down and put to dust his instinctive physical behavior, on an action level, and on an emotional level. And it's only then that the intellect was able to free itself and be a source of connection or a vessel to connect to the nevuah. And he says, all this, mikol avkat ruchel. And he says, what does he mean, mikol avkat ruchel, from all the different, the merchant of spice and smells? He says, the nefesh is like this merchant. You have a lot of different smells. You have a lot of midot. We have a lot of reactions. We have a lot of imaginations. We're full of it. You can bring any smell to any taste to any situation. All the time. But it takes these the consumption, right? It takes the sacrifice on a practical and on an emotional level that will set the tone for the rest of the midot. So it doesn't matter. And he says the mor and the levona are two very intense smell. Rosh habesamim. The Chachamim tell us that mor, right, the mir, is Rosh habesamim, is the strongest, the most important smell. That was the essential smell in the Ketoret in the Bet HaMikdash. Mor ulvona, again, the mor. So the Malbim tells us that you have to take your strongest instinct, yeah. You have to break it, not only on a action level, which is not to do something, but also on an emotional level. And only then can you set the tone to do the same thing for little midot, bad midot that we have, in order to be the vessel that he became to receive the connection of the nevuah.
Rab, so that would mean that the toughest thing for you on your instinct is what you have to get down.
Correct. The Rambam says in Shmone Prakim LeHarambam, you can refer to the Shiurim of Shmone Prakim LeHarambam. He says a very, very interesting and important lesson. He says we are all born with instincts. The instinct may be close to the golden path, but most of the time it's not. Right? He says if you don't have the clarity to compare the norm to the norm, what's expected from you intellectually, according to your da'at, right? And your instinctive reaction, if you cannot create that delta, okay, you're lost. Says the Rambam, you're lost. And what happens? The Rambam says that instinct becomes slowly more and more polarized and extreme. And the extreme experience, okay, creates a need and a dependence of having more of that experience. So somebody that does not control his anger, naturally he's going to want to be more angry. Somebody that doesn't control his ego, he's going to have to feed that ego more and more and more. And the more he feeds it, and the more it's hungry, and the more he needs to feed it. To a level where he doesn't care anymore. He knows that it's bad, but he doesn't care anymore. He needs it like a drug addict. Eventually, he will cross that path and he will start becoming completely delusional and now believe that it's good and rationalize that it's okay and he needs it and it's fine. So says the Rambam, unless you're exposed to that balance and to that point of reference and recognize how far you are and actually go and tackle it, you can never get out of it. You will, and not only you cannot get out of it, but you actually create a dependence and extremism. So, going back, referring back to your point, absolutely, it's extremely important to be able to tackle and stop it and contain it, just so that you can have a better objective outlook of how far you are from where you need to be. And only then start working on how to bring yourself back to the norm. So the Rambam has a full perek, 2 prakim, essentially, the whole sefer of Shmone prakim, but 2 prakim, that he seems, if you read it like this, you think like the Rambam had nothing to do but to tell you, those are the extremes and this is what in the middle. No, the Rambam comes to teach us that if you really want to fix yourself, you need to be aware of the extremes in order to understand where you belong in that spectrum and find your way back to the center.
Wow.
That's the awareness. And this is what we find underlined, taught by Shlomo HaMelech, right? You see how he creates that contrast constantly between the intellect and the emotion, between the sacrifice and the internalization, between the different ways of sacrifice. I have to sacrifice, like the Malbim says, right? I have to sacrifice, put ashes, the bad behavior on an action level, on an emotional level. And all this with total awareness, by the way, all this total awareness of where he really belongs. At the end, he's connected spiritually at that point, right? That's where he is. But that's what he took. That's the work he had to do to protect and be blessed with such a level. Going back to the pasuk in the pasuk Hey, you cannot lose focus of the entire situation. You need to have your panoramic view at all time. You can be zooming in into something specific, but you cannot let a blind sight happen. You cannot disregard your instinct, your Yetzer Hara. You cannot, because if you are, even though you're at the highest level of connection, you know what's going to happen? You're going to get attacked by that Yetzer Hara, by that tendency, and it will crash, and the system will crash exactly like what happened to Shlomo HaMelech the first time. He got into a very big high, but the Yetzer Hara, the Midot, got the better of him, and he lost the connection. So here we again in the lesson where Shlomo HaMelech is teaching us, and I mean, just as a glimpse, without going too deep into it, but the next pasuk, Kine mitato shel Shlomo shishim giborim saviv la migibore Israel, right? It's such powerful pasuk. The mitah, the bed of Shlomo, shishim giborim saviv la. There's 60 giborim, right? Soldiers around it, migibore Israel, from all the soldiers. The Malbim says and he goes into detail to explain that 60 are the 60 members of the body that actually weighs on the neshama. He counts that we have 248, right, organs. Amongst those 248 organs, we have 60 that are essential and play a role, a hormonal and emotional role. Okay? And it says those 60 are here to fight or the uprising of the neshama from leaving the body. So this is what contains and protects the body. He says this is the mitah of mitat Shlomo. Shlomo is the neshama that sits in the mitah, in the bed, in the body. It's the neshama residing in the body. What keeps the neshama inside the body? Those shishim giborim. This is what contains, and don't let the neshama leave the body. It makes you more human. That's what keeps you more human. So he says, so and he's going to go, and we're going to get into it. He says, this is what I have to fight with. This is what I had to navigate around to be able to free as much as possible the neshama.
So he was fighting those 60 organs.
Yes, but because he wanted the spiritual connection. He wanted to leave. He wanted the neshama to be fully free, right? What is the purpose of the Giborim? To hold on to the Neshama and keep the Nefesh, the Neshama contained inside the Nefesh to stay human and alive. Well, now you understand the Segula of that Pasuk.
Yes.
Right? So that
Very fundamental to us, this pasuk.
yes. So again, what back in perspective, what's happening right now is that Shlomo HaMelech is giving us an outlook. Oh, there's a problem with the camera today. He's giving us an outlook of the challenges that he had to take into consideration in order to get to what he got and simultaneously deal with those challenges. So that with that, we see Atad Ishmaya, we complete Pasuk He and Pasuk Vav. We just touched the flavor a little bit of Pasuk Zayin according to the Malbim, but we'll go back into it with the heavy teachings of the Gaon Mivina. Very deep.
Beautiful. Thank you, Rav.
Beautiful. Okay, Tzaddikim.
Brian,
So I should reflect, just one question. I should reflect on the hardest instinct I have to deal with and work to tackle that one. Focus on that one.
That's right. That is the more.
According
to the Malbim, that's the more ulvona, more, right? That's the mir. Once you hold on to that and you're able to control that, you set the tone for the weaker ones.
Got it.
For the less challenging ones.
Nice job, eh? Wow. Thank you, Rav.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Sorry for the delay.
No. All good, Sadiq. All good. You okay?